With the end of the year in sight, Malaysia will soon be running the last lap to its high-income goal in 2020, but has the rest of the nation really caught up? Well, if the numbers are anything to go by, inequality when it comes to wealth, income, and access to infrastructure still very much a concern. We caught up with Dato' Charan Mokhzani, Managing Director of Khazanah Research Institute, to tell us more about the state of our households.
Malaysia is well on track to becoming a high-income country in terms of GDP per person. What we're trying to explore is what is happening to the household. So some households are very well off, but many households are not as well off as one would expect, given the level of GDP per person, which is at the moment over $10,000 per person. And some households make far less than that. Many households make far less than that. So one of the things we're trying to explore in this book is to understand what the issues are and what possibly could be done to raise household income.
Yeah, we have seen varying numbers regarding the median income of a household. So when you take into account the real economy and how inflation has pushed up prices, but the real wage has yet to really keep pace, what can be done then to push up that household income?
Well, real median household income, in other words, household income of the median household income after adjusting for inflation, in fact, has been rising. And in the last couple of years, it's risen quite fast. And since 2009, if you look at the US or the UK, real median household income actually fell. So about around 4%. In Malaysia, it's actually grown around 19% in that period. So growth has benefited the households. The question is, how can we have growth benefit the households even more?
So more equitable distribution.
Equitable distribution, and just get people at the lowest end of the scale earning more money.
Yeah, when you take a look at GDP and what is then pumped into investment versus wages, is there going to be more of a balancing act then in the years to come as well?
Yeah, one thing we looked at is salaries and wages over EBITDA for the listed companies, and we also looked at the share of salary and wages over GDP. In both instances, Malaysia is probably lower than one would expect. In very advanced countries, salaries and wages are over 50% of GDP. In Malaysia, it's 33%. So there is room to grow. But one of the questions we're trying to answer is, how do you do that? How do you make employers pay more to their employees? And we think one of the ways to do that is to have a more skilled workforce, and for the employers to be in industries which require more skills. So clearly, the two parts to it. One is have a more educated workforce. Secondly, promote industries and create jobs which are high value added and high skilled.
Does that come down then to policy to enable that type of skilling up?
Well, that is one of the policy responses we're looking at, which is what can we do better to have a more skilled workforce? And what can we do better in terms of promoting and growing industries which create high-value jobs?
And when you take a look at those industries then pushing for the high-value part of the supply chain, what type of focus should be put on the economy at large?
Well, we haven't. This is our first report, which in a sense sets out the issues we're trying to explore in much deeper terms. But I'll give you an example. Electronics, it started off in Malaysia as pure assembly, and now there's a fair amount of value added in electronics in Malaysia, which was actually slightly surprising to me because I'm still stuck in the 80s when I still thought that everything was just pure assembly, and there is a lot. So one of the things we're looking at is this idea called TIVA, which is trade in value added. So rather than just promoting exports for the sake of promoting the big top line export number, let's look at promoting exports which have high TIVA or trade in value added. OECD is doing a lot of work in this, and we're looking at the work they're doing. But the idea again is to isolate what kind of industries create TIVA or have the potential of creating TIVA, and promote those types of industries rather than those which have little value added and therefore don't employ skilled workers.
So it's been quite a roller coaster ride with the oil slump plus a weakening ringgit and Malaysians on the lookout for next year's GST. What does this mean for the average Malaysian? As promised, here's more of our exclusive sit-down with Dato' Charan Mokhzani of the Khazanah Research Institute.
For the median household in terms of expenditure, the biggest expenditure is on housing and on food. And so we're looking at things which can be done to reduce both of the things. For example, our next report will be on affordable housing, which is how to build housing which is affordable. And affordable here, we're taking the kind of generally accepted definition, which is 3 times annual median income. So what can be done to reduce price of houses so that those who earn the median income can afford it. Similarly with food. An example we use in our report is the price of chicken. On a kilogram US dollar per kilogram basis, we have one of the chicken's probably the cheapest, or one of the cheapest in ASEAN. Thailand's probably the only country which has cheaper chicken. And so clearly we're quite efficient in producing chicken. But yet, if you look at change in chicken prices in Malaysia compared to global change in chicken prices, there is a slight disconnect. And we're trying to understand why that is. Is there some clog in the supply chain? Is there something there which through the right kinds of policies, anti-competition policy or whatever, which can unclog the supply chain and bring food prices down? I mean, at the end of the day, you can't run away. If global food prices go up, there's a limit to how much you can bring them down. But to the extent that you can make things more efficient, then hopefully for the median household, that means they have more money to spend.
Yeah, and Malaysian households have been reliant to some degree on subsidies to then support the type of food or other types of payments they might have to make. But the fuel subsidy rationalization is very much in place. Yes. December 1st, we did see a new system come to the fore. When you take a look then at how effective that type of system will be versus perhaps the direct transfers given by BRIM, for example, KRI has an interesting take on that, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite ironic. We came out quite strongly, we thought, against subsidies, and then lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, subsidies were abolished. I wish I could claim credit for that. But I'm sure the government has been considering this for a long time. So the good thing about abolishing subsidies, the good thing about, one of the good things about world fuel prices coming down is that we can maintain the same level of price at the petrol pump, yet without any subsidy, which is great because it saves a lot of money. But philosophically, we do think that subsidies are a very blunt weapon. You end up probably enriching people who don't deserve to be enriched and not really getting the people whom you want to target. So things like cash transfers, like BRIM, are we think the best way. I mean, substantially, if you want to help people, decide who you want to help and give them the help directly, rather than subsidizing fuel prices for everyone. Again, I mean, the example we gave in our book is someone riding a small motorcycle and someone driving a German 2-liter car. The subsidy per 1,000 kilometers is miles apart. And why should a person driving a German car get a subsidy? I've got nothing against drivers of German cars, but why should they get a subsidy? Yeah.